Thank you. Okay, so I am excited. First of all, that every single one of y'all are here and that Kristin is here. We've been talking since May. Originally, the first Naomi Speaks was supposed to be in July. Is that right, Amy? Was it in July? And then I scheduled it, moved it, God changed it, shifted, and so we're here today because the first one we ended up doing a reunion from the people who had been Naomi's before, and then Kristin and I have been talking about her book, and I actually found, I don't remember how I found you. I think I was scrolling on social media and she popped in my news feeds and I just started looking and God was like, so I did that, where you take the little, what's that called?
Like a deep dive.
Yeah, deep dive, where you go down the rabbit hole.
There you go.
And I was down the rabbit hole and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. She has a book called My Journey Back to God. And she immediately responded. And so I'm excited that she's here with me. So y'all give it up for Kristin Dickerson. Okay, so first thing first is I need you to tell me what was happening in your life when you wrote the book.
Yeah. Ooh. Thank you. Well, thank you all so much for having me, and thanks for putting up with my noise. We're trying to make a little video for you. So what was happening in my life that led to this book? I had been working in TV news for 15 years, and I was working at NBC5. And as I was achieving material success, everything else in my world started to fall apart. Because for that 15 years, all I did was focus on the material success. I wanted to be able to prove I was good enough by being able to survive a job in this market. And we purchased a house, my husband and I, Peter, who's in the back.
Hey,
Peter! We purchased a house in Grand Prairie, which was a really long commute from the studio. And so as I continued to work more and more, I wasn't pouring into my relationship with my husband. So that started to get unsettled. We allowed a family member to move in with us for a month. He stayed for 18 months. And at that time, I didn't have the strength to tell him simply, it's time for you to go. And so marriage was messy, unsettled. Career started to get unsettled because there was a manager at work who basically told me I would never be good enough. The worst part was that I believed him in that moment. And of course, when I'm dealing with my own drama, I thought I didn't have time for God. So I wasn't pouring into myself. I wasn't spending a lot of time in prayer, nor meditation, nor going to any type of church service. And it hit a breaking point. Peter and I started marriage counseling, and then we got pregnant. 7 weeks later, we found out that that pregnancy would end in a miscarriage. So I was anchoring a weekend newscast, and my favorite producer in the world, Janine, who's here.
Hi, Janine.
Yeah, Janine! She normally writes that show. She continues, that is her career, and that is her job right now. She's the incredible producer for NBC5. She was on vacation. Thanks, Janine. And somebody else was filling in for her. And usually in the second block of news, it's a time where you get to have all the good stories of the day. News is heavy enough as it is, right? There's that one little 3-minute segment of news. That's all good news. And we get to it on that day, and it was not good news. It was mass casualties overseas from terrorism and severe weather abroad. And I didn't grow up in the church. I'm very new in my faith walk. And I heard a very clear message in my mind and in my heart that said, I'm doing this wrong. And it was so clear that I knew if I continued to do this wrong, that a part of me was going to just get darker. And what I realized is that on that day and in my job, I had a platform to share the best of humanity. And on that day, I was sharing the worst. And so I felt like we were being called to share the best. And if we were going to share it, that means we had to capture it. So I told my news director at the time, who is just a phenomenal man, I said, hey, in 7 months, I'm not going to renew my contract. And Peter and I started planning a pilgrimage, 98 days long, visiting the holiest places in the world. And our goal going into it was that we wanted to share the best of humanity. We wanted to find the commonality amongst different religions and find God in all people. And so we packed camera gear and started planning that trip.
So that in itself, how many days?
98.
98 days. And you traveled for 98 days all over the world. So what was that like when you were going into these different places, different cultures?
Yeah.
Because everybody doesn't worship the same. And so, because it's your journey back to God, how did you walk through that? And what was the light bulb moment for you on that course?
What I love most is just finding the commonality among people, right? Like we all want to feel peace. We all want to be happy. We all want to have family members who are safe and cared for. And no matter who we believe in or pray to me, God still feels the same. If I walk into an ancient Hindu temple that's been where people have worshipped for, thousands of years, and I walk into a cathedral in Santiago, Spain, where we walk to 500 miles, we get there and we're outside of it, and inside is where the remains of St. James, Apostle of Jesus, reside. In all these holy places, it feels the same. And to me, that sameness can be found in prayer. That feeling can be found for me in meditation, after a yoga class, because that's when I'm able to finally get my body still enough and my mind quiet enough to finally be able to really listen and feel that subtle vibration that if I wanted to create it right now, I'd clap my hands or wiggle my hands together, and I could feel the energy, almost like a subtle humming or vibration in my hands. And I use that now as prayer to just expand that energy and light to everyone in the room, the city, and beyond. So it was really finding the commonality that God is the same. No matter how you get there, no matter what road you take to the top of the mountain, it's all the same.
That is good. So how did God speak to you and to encourage you as you were preparing?
Thank you. It was once we got the idea for this pilgrimage, and the pilgrimage is where the book was written. It entails all the ins and outs and the journey that got us there. And thank you very much. I scribbled all over it. That's my copy.
Okay. That's our copy.
Inside I have notes to myself. Be calm, breathe, good job. Okay, I'm doing all right. And so whenever we started this, whenever we were like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go on pilgrimage. We're going to take camera gear. We're going to document with the hope that we could share it with people who might not be able to walk across Spain or spend 6 weeks in India or 10 days worshiping in Israel. And as soon as we started making plans toward it, it was like we'd go and open a small window, but like a barn door would fly open with opportunities and guidance. We'd share what we hoped to do with strangers, and they would have tears in their eyes. And at the time, we didn't even understand. It was just little sweet nudges of like, y'all are going in the right direction, just keep going. The biggest example for me is I love looking for God in synchronicities specifically like in numbers. And so whenever we knew we needed to take camera gear to document our pilgrimage, I also at the same time had this same thought, like I just knew it, that I needed to buy new camera gear to be able to document it in a higher clarity. And in the simplest form, it's like the camera gear we had, it looked good on a cell phone. It looked good on a small flat screen, not one like in here. But it wouldn't be able to be shown on a giant screen, like in a movie theater. And I didn't have a goal in mind. I didn't know where this project was going. I just knew I could not be cheap when it came to God. So we put $7,000 worth of camera gear on a credit card. And some random jobs came up, like freelance to make a video for veterans and to host a TV show about horses, which I know about, all kinds of but we didn't think anything of it. We're like, oh, this is okay. Until the day before we left for our pilgrimage. And Peter and I went to a bank to deposit the money from our pilgrim. Peter just waved at me. Am I talking too loud? Okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, I hit the microphone. I'm breaking my own rules. So we get to a bank the day before we start our pilgrimage, and Peter starts to fill out a deposit slip out of all the checks from the freelance work. And I just think, how much did we spend on that camera gear? So I look at my credit card bill, and I look at the total, and then I look over at the total from the freelance work, look back at mine, and the difference was $1.91. Wow. I could have never planned that. I could have never anticipated that happening. And as I mentioned, I didn't grow up in the church, so I don't have scriptures in my back pocket. So I Google it. So I Googled scripture 191, like, come on, God, like if he could have made it that specific, why wasn't it 0? Why wasn't it the exact amount? Are the questions that my journalistic mind, why did this have to happen? And the topic that came up was Psalm 91, and it was, he will wrap you in his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge, which to me was a nudge of, if you continue to follow your intuition and those little nudges, you'll be protected.
Well, what you don't know is Psalms 91 is my favorite
yay!
scripture. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. My refuge and my fortress, in him I will trust. So that is something that, because it's the ultimate prayer protection. So when you were going on that pilgrimage, God was making sure you had that ultimate prayer protection covering you as you were going on that journey. There are chapters in this book. It's drama-free spiritual battle processing. There's a lot in here that I know that you're going to want everybody to get a grasp, a hold of. But is there something that you can read? Just a couple of little paragraphs that maybe we can all hear. Something. So let me give you back your copy, because I am notorious for keeping things.
Love it.
That does not belong to me, books and pens, and so.
Yay. Yeah, I'm perfect. Thank you. There's a short chapter, and it goes back to that moment with the challenging boss who, come to find out, was having some personal issues that resulted with him causing a little bit of chaos at work. And it was about that moment when I he questioned my worth and I believed him. And then that circled back at the very end of our pilgrimage. So this chapter is called The Beginning of Something Beautiful. It was written on day 96 of our 98-day pilgrimage, and I wrote it in Noida, in the region of Uttar Pradesh in India. Toward the end of our longest meditation yet as a couple, 6 hours, Peter and I, along with 100 or so other people, chanted Jai Jai Ram in the basement temple of an ashram outside of New Delhi. Jai Jai Ram has roots in Sanskrit and means victory to God. A young monk led us through the second half of the meditation, which included this extended chanting session. His voice had a sweet depth that was both soul-stirring and a delight to my ears. My heart felt full. As we chanted, I realized this was the end of our 3-month pilgrimage. I felt tightness in my throat. It's where emotion seems to get stuck in my body. But this time, it was a good emotion. In the past, it's where anxiety or anger would reside. During a counseling session, I learned that when the tightness comes to my throat, I need to place my hands on my neck and tell my throat, "You're safe. You have nothing to be afraid of." I continued chanting, Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, feeling the peaceful vibration from the chant resonate in my throat. My vocal cords started to relax. Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. I wanted to use that new vibration of peace, love, and gratitude at a time when I needed it earlier in my life, during my breaking points. They were the moments when I didn't have the strength to speak up for myself. I mentally went back to my former boss's office. It was the day that ended with me questioning my worth. I saw myself sitting there in a small glassed-in office, throat tight, unable to speak. He said a lot of things that day, and what I heard was, "You'll never be good enough." As I sat across from him in his office, the tears started to well up in my eyes, then fall, the first, then the second. As they fell, I knew I was showing even more weakness by crying, proof that I never would be good enough. As the meditation neared its final hour, I thought I'd use the positive chanting vibration to mentally recreate the scenario in my boss's office. Maybe I'd confidently tell him something, anything. But that's not what happened. Instead, I had a vision. I saw something in my mind's eye, and it wasn't coming from my own creativity. It was like watching a play and not having any idea what was going to happen next. In the vision, I saw myself sitting in my boss's office crying. Then, a second version of me appeared. She was sitting in the chair next to me that was crying. She leaned over to me and quietly whispered in my ear, "This is the beginning of something beautiful." My boss was still talking down to me. I was still crying. But the second me continued whispering, and the side of her mouth now cracked with a smile. She continued, "I know this is hard right now, and it's going to be difficult for a while, but something great is going to come from this very moment. In the meditation room, the tears started flowing. I remembered that the blue bandana I wore on the Camino was in my chair, and I grabbed it to start wiping my face. Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. I thought about how much had happened since that challenging moment in my boss's office. We had completed a life-changing faith walk that took me and Peter across 3 countries, drawing us closer to God and each other. Over and over, I thought of her words. This is the beginning of something beautiful. She was right, and it all started with that one moment. As the chanting continued, my tears of gratitude continued to flow so hard, I stopped wiping them away. Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. So you can get a copy of her book here today, everybody. So you can, we ask you if you, her table's over there. And then also Dia's book, Dia's The Soft Power. Her book is over there as well, too. As we're closing up, just the last minute that we have here, you were working on another project. Second book to follow up for this. Can you just take a minute and just tell us about that?
Yes. As briefly as I can, 2 years from the day that we left for this pilgrimage, I thought, hey, God's done with me. I did a faith walk, went back to NBC5. You laugh because you know, right? You know. Well, that's it. We're going to go on the road, whatever. We'll circle back later, God.
Been there.
Yes. And Peter and I are shooting a piece in Costa Rica, and we are filming a surfing lesson. We finish the lesson, we surf, everything's great. I fall into the water, and as I come back up, at that exact moment, a wave hit my surfboard and crashed right into my throat. And I go underwater, and I hold my throat, and I think, I need help, I need help. But my message was not for anyone on the beach. It was for any divine being that could hear me. I need help. And so I was in a Costa Rican hospital for 9 days. I lost my voice, my ability to speak, my ability to swallow. Both are still being worked on a year and a half later. And then I started documenting all the beautiful moments of healing. Like that injury was number 2 on my list of most spiritual experiences of my life. And it was a challenge. It was the beginning of something beautiful again. And my favorite story from the whole journey was that it was day 2 in the hospital. And we get a bill from the hospital because we have to, in Costa Rica, you have to pay the bill before you're allowed to leave. This bill was $116,000. But what's funny is I didn't have that reaction. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to be living in Costa Rica. We're never leaving, honey. We got to speak Spanish. Háblale pues. But what I thought was 116, because a few days before I noticed there was a synchronicity, because of course that's how God speaks. That's the way I'm listening is numbers. There's a synchronicity in my checking account and my bank, like my checking and my savings. Checking started with 16. And my savings started with 116, and the bill started with 116. I was like, what in the world, 116? What is 116? So I do what anybody who still hasn't memorized a lot of scripture does. They Google it. Scripture 116. And immediately the memory that came to my mind was when the surfboard hit my throat, I fell into the water, and I can't speak, but I'm screaming, I need help from deep within me. Psalm 116 is, I love the Lord, for he heard my voice. He heard my cry for mercy. Fortunately, the hospital bill went way down, and we were allowed to leave the country. In the last year and a half, we've been experimenting with all kinds of natural healing, things that are far older than modern medicine, but we've been doing it all, because I'm like, I will try anything. We have one more experiment happening in January, and then the book will be complete.
Okay. Well, then we will definitely be praying for her. Won't we be praying for everyone in the room for the cheek deal? One thing that I just want you to say, what do you want people to walk away when they read this book?
I love that. My prayer from the beginning was that sharing moments of my story reminds anyone who reads it that they have their own. Like that God is with you, that you are loved, that all those challenges, being able to look back and realize that they were the beginning of something beautiful because they taught you something, or something had to happen from that challenge. So I think that's the thing that I hope. I mean, I don't think that I'm a brilliant writer or that like all these crazy things happen, but I think it's so beautiful when people have read it and they are reminded of their loved ones that are still with them, or like things in their life. Like, it's been beautiful to hear feedback from it. So I think that's it.
And so now you are back in your actual career, and tell everyone before we close up, what are you doing now?
Yes. So my day job is, and it talks about it in the book, because we were going to be gypsies until we ran out of money. But we were camping in Israel, and we got a text message from the general manager at NBC5, and he said, hey, we're starting something that matched the reasons why I told him I was leaving. He said, it's all positive, it's all good news, it's all feel good, it's all community. Like, would you be interested in applying to host this job? And immediately I didn't want to, but when I thought about it, I would get chills on my arms when I thought of two things. You'll need the people in the building and unexpected opportunities. And that has evolved to mean so many different things, meeting guests on our show. So I said yes, and now my current day job is I get to host a show called Texas Today, where we get to share the best of humanity, Texas style. And it airs Monday through Friday from 11:30 to noon.
Okay. So everybody will be checking her out from 11:30 to noon. So everybody give it up for
Thank you.
Kristin Dickerson. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.